Your Honor, I object. We're talking a lot about sales in this series of shows, and one of the biggest problems people have is objections. And it doesn't matter how good you are, there are going to be objections to whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's selling a product, selling a service, trying to get someone to go out on a date with you, getting married, relationships. There's always going to be this resistance. So what do we do?
Well, Scott, I thought we were talking about going to court today because you were objecting. So
I
threw me off my game. You can't handle the truth.
That's right. Yeah, you can't handle the truth. That's such a good line, right?
So today we're going to talk about sales objections, right? So if you're looking to sell something, if you're looking to share your product or service with somebody, somebody's going to come up with something and say some kind of objection why they don't want to buy your product or service, right? And so when that happens, what do you do? How do you overcome that? That's the question, right?
That is the question.
Don't you just say, well, you're wrong, buy it now.
And some people do that. Like they just bowl you over and probably don't even handle the objection. And
well, we were talking about sales dogs in a previous lesson, and one of the sales dogs is the pit bull. And that's exactly what the pit bull does, right? They just overcome your objection through force. And sometimes we call that hard sales, right? And it's hard sales because you're like right in their face and you're hard in their face, right?
Yeah, that's what gives, I don't want to say that's what gives sales a bad name, but that's what a lot of people think about when they think of sales, right? Like when you have an objection and the other person just blows past the objection, keeps talking, talks over you, doesn't really want you to come up with your objection, isn't listening to you. And then of course we see that a lot with telemarketers, right? Because they'll make 100 phone calls, or their computer will, and if they can get one person to actually answer, then it's like, oh my God, I've got one person and I need to, hold on to this person as long as I can. And they become experts at asking questions and manipulating you so that you don't hang up, until eventually you just get so sick of it that you hang up. And because they're never going to stop, right?
Right.
And when it comes to objections, I think probably quite a few people in the world, I was introduced to network marketing, MLM companies, and I was a complete and utter failure. There's no other way to put it, right? Now, having said that, that experience set me off on a totally different path than I was before, and thank goodness I had that experience. But in terms of this specific little company and Scott, I don't think you could find anyone that was worse at it than me.
Oh, trust me, there's plenty of people not very good at network marketing.
Right. But I want to take the #1 spot here, if you don't mind, Chaffee.
Okay.
And so, of course, after 2 or 3 years of abject failure and the bank account continually getting lower and lower and lower, I did what most people did, and I quit. And it wasn't until about 6 or 8 months after I quit that I was talking to somebody else who was in network marketing, and I don't recall if it was the same company or not. And they casually dropped a bomb. And the bomb was this: there are only 10 objections to a network marketing opportunity. And I said, why didn't anybody tell me that? And why didn't you tell me what the objections were? And why didn't you tell me what the answer to the objections are? And I did it in a very calm, deliberate, screaming at the top of my lungs sort of way. Because it's kind of like, we're going to play baseball, Chaffee, and we've got a bunch of other guys that are going to be on our team. But nobody told us that you hold the bat at the thin end, not at the thick end. And so we're striking out all the time. And then finally, after months and months, someone says, you know, you're holding the bat wrong. It's kind of like, why didn't you tell me like day one? And these, you know, it's just super fundamental things. So if you're in a business and you're experienced and you're bringing on a salesperson, you know what the objections are. And it's your job to teach those objections to your student, to your staff, to the people that are coming on. But it really amazes me how rare that seems to be, because I never hear people talking about, well, these are how you overcome these objections, whatever they are.
Do you remember what those 10 objections are?
No, I just remember that there were 10. He said there are 10 objections. There's no more than 10. You just have to learn how to deal with those 10. And it's like, this is 3 years in. And I thought there were 1 million because I'm getting 1 million objections. And he was like, no, if you dig down, there are only really 10.
And even 10 sounds a lot to me.
Well,
really, there's only a handful of objections that are the same objections over and over and over again. So
what are these handful?
Well, the most common, I'll tell you the most common two, all right? The most common two objections that you'll hear are, one, I don't have enough money, and two, I don't have enough time, right? So those, I hear those objections about everything all the time, you know, whatever it is that you're selling. I don't have enough money, and I don't have enough time. And so, you know, those are the two biggies. And then obviously you're going to have some product or service specific objections that you can go through. Only, like I said, other than those two biggies, the other ones are just kind of like minor objections. And so, Scott, so let's just start off with addressing objections, okay? And the first thing that I want to say about objections is that when somebody gives you an objection and they don't say no, it just means I don't have enough information. I don't know enough. That's why I'm saying I don't want it yet, or I'm not sure, or that's why I'm coming up with this objection. Now, if they come out and say, no, I don't want it, that's pretty straightforward, right? That's not, I mean, that it could be interpreted as an objection, and in reality, that's a no. Okay, so if somebody just says, you know, I'd really like it, except I don't have enough money for it, that's an objection. That just means, right, you know, how do you overcome that objection, right? And so when you hear objections, you know, as a good salesperson, the answer is to listen to that objection and not just say, no, I'm done, I don't have the sale, right? It's really, what is that objection, and what is the root cause of that objection, and why are they bringing that objection up? And
yeah, I want to go back to the no, and because I was actually just in a sales situation where I could be, I was being sold, and I said no, and the person who I have a good relationship with said okay, and we just went on to the next thing whatever it was that we were going to talk about. And the interesting thing about the no for me is that I felt like I had enough information. I didn't really want, I'd been doing some other things with him. He was a coach, and I really liked what he was doing, but I didn't want to add more onto my plate. And so I just kind of said that no. And the way that he handled it was such that the next time he has a program and he approaches me, I'm totally open to participating in it. And in 2 or 3 months, things may change in my life, and I may go to him and say, you know, that thing you were talking about, I'd like to get onto it now. So the no for me is, it's not like, it's different than if you're going door to door to door and knock, knock, would you like my widget? No. Knock, knock, do you want my widget? No. You're never going to go back, and you're never going to give them, I mean, you may go back with another widget, but it's highly unlikely because there's millions of doors in a city. But that's kind of like final, and nothing ever is going to come. But when you have a relationship with people and you get the no, then how you handle the no really sets up whether there's a continuation of the relationship and there's an opportunity for, and we talk about this in selling, and what he's really doing is he's solving a problem I've got. He knows me, he knows what I'm doing, he knows, hey, Scott's doing this, these are the problems Scott runs into, here's how I can help him, which is you know, a lot different than knocking door to door. So I just wanted to bring that up, is when people say no, it doesn't necessarily mean never ever anything ever again. It's just in this particular instance, no.
So that's what we call nurturing a lead, right? So you're going to continue to build that relationship and nurture that lead so that sometime down the road, when they're ready, then they would give you a call. And a good example of that is my buddy is a real estate agent, and you know, he's always looking for clients, and the client that he's looking for either has to be in the market to buy a property or to sell a property. And as we know, you don't buy and sell a property like overnight, right? So has to nurture a lead. Well, he has to, you know, communicate and network with people and everything so that when they're ready to buy, it could be 6 months, it could be 2 years down the road, that he's built up a relationship with them, that think, oh, I'm ready to buy a house now. Who should I call as my real estate agent? Oh, I should call up so-and-so because he's been, you know, nurturing me or contacting me for the past 2 years, top of mind, right? Or if, you know, you're living in a house. Now, one of the common things that we have in my neighborhood is that there's a real estate agent that's been in my neighborhood for the past 20 years that she'll send a postcard to everybody in the neighborhood. Like, she lives in the neighborhood, she'll send a postcard in the neighborhood, and for the past 20 years, everyone knows that she's the one. And one time I was driving down my neighborhood, and for some reason there was a bunch of houses on sale. There were actually 6 houses on sale in my neighborhood, which was, you know, like a mile or two, you know, area. And of the 6 properties, 5 of the 6 were listed by her, right? And so for 20 years, now we've had other agents come in, send a postcard or two, and then disappear. Only she's been doing it consistently for 20 years. So everybody knows that that's the person to go to. And she's nurtured that neighborhood so that people think, when I'm ready to sell, I'm calling her because she's been around for 20 years. So, and
she's obviously good at what she does.
Exactly.
That's the other part, right? You need to have the quality of service as well as the stick-to-itiveness. So
for her, the no, I'm not ready to sell isn't a no right now. It's just, you know, when you're ready to sell, I'm the person, right? So she was building that up. Now, that aside, the next step from a no is that objection, right? So how do we handle those objections? And I talked about 2 of them, and obviously there's more. Only those are the 2 biggies, right? And the first thing I will say about objections is that anytime that you refute an objection, you've lost the negotiation. Okay. So if somebody comes up with an objection and you say, no, you're wrong, immediately that's going to cause them to build up this wall between you and them, because you are now arguing with them, right? And so the first step of an objection is to agree with the objection. And if you don't agree with that objection, that just means that, again, you're arguing with somebody. And when you argue with somebody, their defense mechanism comes up. And when their defense mechanism goes up, their ears close off and they don't listen anymore. So. Right.
So thinking back to my grocery days, it's like we're taking the customer to the till with a cart full of groceries. We're going together. We're not pushing I'm not pushing her to go find more groceries for her cart, not letting her go to the checkout. So we want to be going together to close the deal, not, like you said, being adversarial. You're not going to get it if that's the case.
Right. So once you agree with them, what that has done essentially means that you've listened to that objection, right? Now that you've listened to that objection, you can dig deeper to find out why that objection came up and then address the actual root cause of that objection. And I would say that most of the time when people say that I don't have enough money for your product or your service, it really just means that it's not important enough for them to spend the money on your product or service. And so if you can find out what your product or service does that makes it important enough for them to prioritize it higher, then they're more motivated to buy from you. And let me give you an example, Scott. It's never, first of all, you know, if you're taking notes, write this down. It's never about the money, right? It's never about the money, because if something is important enough to somebody, they're going to find the money. Like, there's money all around. They're going to find it if it's important enough. And so one time I was at a conference, an event, and there was a friend of mine who drove down there, and it was a 3-hour drive from Chicago. And so, you know, there's a whole bunch of people that drove down there. Only she drove down there. And when the event was over, on the way, getting ready to go home, she had a flat tire, and she had to replace that tire. And she's like, I got no money. I don't have like any money to replace the tire. I mean, she, you know, didn't have a very good job. She was living paycheck to paycheck, and she really had no money in the bank to pay this tire. And she's like, what the heck am I going to do? You know? Only in order for her to get home, like, she had to come up with a solution to find the money to get home, right? And so she called her husband and said, we need to transfer some money around, get some money out, I'll, you know, pay off some bills on the credit card so that I can charge this so I can get home. And so it was important enough for her, you know, obviously she was stranded, so she had no choice, you know. So I stuck around with her to make sure that she was able to do all that. Only if she wasn't able to do that, all that, obviously she had some friends around her that would have covered her or helped her until she could pay everybody back. And so that's a small situation where, you know, the tire cost her, I think it was like $400 for the repair and a new tire and all that kind of stuff. Only, again, it was important enough for her to make a bunch of phone calls, to talk to a bunch of people to figure out how to get that so that she can get home, versus just saying, I got no money, I don't have a tire, so I guess I'm just walking home, or I'm not doing anything, right? And so it's never really about the money. It's always about how important is it to you, how much of a priority is it to you in your life. And if it's important enough, you'll find the money. You'll borrow the money, you'll call a bunch of people, you'll ask for a loan, you'll do extra work, you'll get an extra job. You know, you hear about people, single moms working 3 jobs to raise their kids. You hear about, you know, individuals going that extra mile to support their family. Well, that's because it's important enough. And so if you can convey the importance of your product or service to an individual, then money's not the issue. It's just a matter of figuring out the solution to purchase that product or service.
Yeah, that's a really well done, Chaffee. You put that together extremely well.
I object.
I have no objection to what you said.
Okay.
In fact, I think this is probably a good place to stop for today, because I'd like everyone to really, you know, think about that. Think about some examples in your life where you've been on either side, where you've, you know, you haven't delved deeply enough. You've argued with the person, like, no, you're wrong. And then come back next week and leave some comments, and let's continue the discussion on objections.
Sounds good.
So, Chaffee, if people want to talk to you, you're a business coach, you're a very successful business coach. How can they get a hold of you?
Well, you're going to show them, Scott.
You couldn't have waited half a second more, could you? I set it up perfectly. Yes. Thank you, Sharuk. All right. So that's how you get a hold of Chaffee. And we're here every week on Friday. Leave comments. We want to know what you think. Leave questions. If you have any topics you want us to talk about, let us know. Make sure that you like, thumbs up, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss anything. And also head over to Udemy. And I don't know if we can put the links maybe in the comments. Yeah, there it is. And take a look at some of our courses. Lots of courses on networking, sales, and growing your business. And Udemy, they're very inexpensive and high quality courses. So take advantage of it. Always improve, right?
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate you.
We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.